There's a man I once worked with named Jack, 64 years old, not overweight, not sick, but tired in a way he couldn't explain. He told me, "I'm lifting, I'm walking, I'm even watching my carbs. But every month I feel slower, softer, like something slipping." It wasn't just his muscles that were shrinking, it was his confidence, his energy, even his sleep. And he's not alone. Every year after age 50, muscle mass quietly declines. Testosterone dips. Recovery takes longer. And for many, the gut reaction is to push harder, more sets, more reps, more willpower. But here's the quiet truth no one talks about. It's not always about doing more. Often, it's about signaling better. Because your body doesn't just respond to hard work, it responds to information. From the food you eat, to the time you train, to how you sleep, breathe, and even how you think. All of it sends signals to your muscles, to your hormones, to your brain. And in this episode, we're going to help you decode those signals. Not with hype, but with neuroscience, endocrinology, and real-world protocols that work, especially as we age. We'll explore why protein alone stops working after 60, how your body clock controls testosterone, why cold, breath, and sleep may be more anabolic than your supplements, and how to structure your week in a way that builds strength, boosts hormones, and doesn't leave you exhausted. This isn't about turning back the clock. It's about learning how your body actually works so you can move forward stronger. So wherever you are on your journey, this is your invitation. Not just to train harder, but to train wiser. Let's begin. Number 1, train smarter, not harder, the truth about failure training. A few years ago, I watched my friend Marcus push through a brutal leg day at the gym. His face was red, his breath ragged, his form shaky, but he was determined to hit muscle failure. "That's where the real growth happens," he told me, dragging himself off the leg press. But 2 weeks later, he wasn't stronger. He was sore, tired, and skipping workouts to recover. Here's what most people don't realize. Training to failure feels hardcore, but it's not always smart. Let's break it down. When you lift weights, your brain recruits muscle fibers in layers, starting with the small ones, then gradually calling on the powerful high-threshold motor units as the set gets harder. The goal in hypertrophy training is to reach those larger fibers. Now here's the myth. People think you have to go all the way to failure to recruit those big fibers, but research tells a different story. A major analysis in sports medicine found that stopping 1 to 3 reps short of failure delivers equal, or even greater, muscle growth than going to full fatigue. Why? Because it hits the same muscle fibers without overloading your nervous system. When you train to failure too often, your recovery slows down. Your sleep quality drops. Your cortisol spikes. And ironically, your testosterone may suffer, not improve. Think about that. If the price of pushing to the edge every session is wrecking your ability to show up the next day, it's not discipline, it's self-sabotage. So what's the smarter way? Train with intensity but not recklessness. Focus on compound movements. Use good form. Stop when your rep speed slows or your posture breaks. Leave 1 or 2 reps in reserve. You're still recruiting the fibers that grow, you're just not frying your nervous system to get there. Lesson: progress isn't about crushing yourself. It's about creating a signal your body can respond to and recover from. And when you understand that, suddenly your workouts stop breaking you down. They start building you up. Now, speaking of signals, there's one that's even stronger than your last rep. It comes not from your muscles, but from your internal clock. Let's talk about timing. Number 2, circadian muscle, the best time of day to lift for hormonal gains. I want to tell you a quick story about my neighbor, Greg. He's 62, retired Air Force, and still lifts weights 5 days a week. For years, he trained at 6:00 a.m. sharp, said it was the disciplined thing to do. But one day, he missed his early session and hit the gym at 5:00 p.m. instead. That day, he crushed his deadlift personal best by 30 pounds. It wasn't caffeine, it wasn't new supplements, it was his biology. You see, our bodies don't run on willpower alone, they follow rhythms, powerful ones. Your strength, flexibility, coordination, and even testosterone levels fluctuate depending on the time of day. This internal timing system is called your circadian rhythm. Let's get specific. Studies have shown that late afternoon and early evening, typically between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., is when your body temperature is highest. This matters because higher core temperature improves muscle elasticity, boosts neuromuscular efficiency, and increases enzyme activity related to muscle contraction. In plain English, you're naturally stronger and more explosive at this time. And hormones, there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Yes, testosterone peaks in the early morning, but so does cortisol, your body's stress hormone. Too much cortisol can blunt the anabolic muscle building effects of testosterone. So that early morning lift, it might not be giving you the hormonal edge you think it is. In contrast, the testosterone to cortisol ratio, a better predictor of muscle growth, is often more favorable in the late afternoon. That's the window where you're not just lifting more, you're signaling your body to grow more efficiently. Now, this doesn't mean you can't lift in the morning. Consistency always beats perfection. But if you have flexibility in your schedule, training in sync with your biology gives you free momentum. You're not fighting your body, you're flowing with it. Let's take it back to Greg. After that one evening session, he changed his routine. He now lifts in the afternoon, eats a solid dinner, sleeps like a baby, and swears his joints don't ache like they used to. The lesson: sometimes it's not about pushing harder, it's about aligning smarter. And speaking of alignment, there's one powerful recovery tool that works while you rest. It doesn't cost anything. You already use it every night, but likely not to its full potential. Let's talk about sleep, your most underrated performance enhancer. Number 3. The forgotten anabolic, sleep as your legal steroid. Let me take you back to a conversation I had with Janet, a 59-year-old yoga teacher who recently started strength training. She was frustrated, eating clean, training hard, but her strength gains had plateaued. She looked at me and said, "I'm doing everything right. What am I missing?" So I asked her, "How's your sleep?" She laughed. "What sleep?" That's when everything clicked. Here's what most people overlook. Muscle isn't built when you lift weights, it's built when you sleep. While you rest, your body enters its most anabolic state, the time when muscle repair, testosterone release, and growth hormone secretion reach their peak. In fact, up to 95% of your daily testosterone production happens during sleep, especially during the deep stages of slow-wave sleep. That's when your pituitary gland releases pulses of luteinizing hormone, the signal that tells your body, it's time to make testosterone. And testosterone is just the beginning. Growth hormone, another major player in muscle repair and fat metabolism, also gets released in powerful waves at night, again, mostly during deep sleep. Miss that window, and you're not just tired, you're missing your body's natural steroids. Let's bring in some real data. In a well-known study from the Journal of the American Medical Association, healthy young men were restricted to just 5 hours of sleep per night for 1 week. Their testosterone dropped by 10 to 15%. That's the kind of decline you'd normally see with several years of aging. Janet didn't need a new supplement. She needed a sleep protocol. So here's what we did. We set a strict sleep window, 10 p.m. to 6:30 a.m., no exceptions. We cut caffeine after 2 p.m. and eliminated screens an hour before bed. We added 5 minutes of slow breathing before sleep to lower cortisol and activate recovery mode. She cooled her bedroom to 65 degrees F, mimicking the natural drop in body temp that promotes deeper sleep. After 3 weeks, her mood was better, her lifts improved, and her muscles, they started to respond. The lesson: if you're training hard and eating well but still not progressing, look at your sleep. It might be the missing anabolic. And now let's move from the quiet of sleep to something that sharpens your edge by doing the opposite: deliberate discomfort. Cold exposure, icy showers, cryotherapy, is it a gimmick or a growth amplifier? Let's find out. Number 4. Cold exposure sharpen hormones without overtraining. A few winters ago, Mark, one of my clients in his early 60s, called me sounding both proud and slightly frozen. I just sat in a tub of ice for 3 minutes. I think I either leveled up or lost my mind. We both laughed, but what he felt afterward wasn't just adrenaline. It was clarity, calm. And later that week, his recovery markers, heart rate variability, energy, and even mood had improved. So what's really happening when you expose your body to cold? Cold exposure, when done right, isn't about suffering. It's about resetting your hormonal and nervous system balance in a way that training alone sometimes can't. Here's the science. When you immerse your body in cold water, or even take a 1-2 minute cold shower, your body releases norepinephrine, a powerful neurochemical tied to focus, alertness, and fat metabolism. In one study, norepinephrine levels rose by over 500% after just 5 minutes of cold exposure at 57 degrees F. But there's more. Norepinephrine also boosts androgen receptor density, essentially upgrading the machinery inside your muscle cells that receives and responds to testosterone. It doesn't create more testosterone, but it makes your existing testosterone more effective. It's like sharpening the blade rather than buying a bigger sword. Cold also activates brown fat, which improves insulin sensitivity and metabolic health. That's a big deal if you're trying to maintain lean muscle and recover faster. But, and this is critical, timing matters. Too many people jump in an ice bath right after training. That's a mistake. Cold immediately post-workout can blunt inflammation, yes, but that inflammation is the very signal your body needs to grow and adapt. Suppress it too soon, and you could be stalling your progress. So how do you do it right? Use cold on rest days or 6-8 hours after training. Start with a 60-second cool shower, not extreme plunges. Gradually build up to 2-3 minutes at 50-60 degrees F, 3-4 times per week. And most importantly, stay calm in the cold. How you breathe matters more than how cold the water is. That's what Mark learned. He wasn't using cold to prove his toughness. He was training his nervous system to handle stress, recover faster, and tap into natural hormonal balance without adding more reps or sets in the gym. Here's the takeaway. Cold isn't a punishment. It's a precision tool. Use it wisely and you gain more than just resilience. You gain hormonal clarity without burnout. Now, let's move from stress response to stress management through food. Because what you eat, and when you eat it, can send your body a powerful signal, build or break down. And in the next section, we'll explore exactly how to eat to signal anabolism. Number 5. Food as a signal: how to eat for anabolism, not just calories. A few years ago, a man named David, 65, lean, disciplined, came to me with a puzzled look. I'm eating plenty of protein, tracking everything, but I still feel like I'm shrinking instead of growing. So I asked him, when you eat, are you just filling up, or are you sending your body a clear signal to grow? Because here's the truth, not all food fuels growth. Calories are just numbers. But certain nutrients in certain combinations at specific times act like green lights for muscle repair, hormone production, and recovery. Let's start with leucine, an amino acid found in high-quality protein sources like eggs, whey, and beef. Leucine doesn't just build muscle, it activates mTOR, the cellular switch that says, "Start muscle protein synthesis." Now, research published in the Journal of Nutrition showed that just a small bump in leucine intake, even without training, increased muscle synthesis in older adults. So David wasn't wrong to track protein, but he was spreading it too thin, 10 grams here, 15 there. The body needs at least 2-5 grams of leucine in one meal, about 30 grams of high-quality protein, to hit that anabolic threshold. But it's not just protein. Let's talk fats, specifically cholesterol and saturated fats from real foods like egg yolks, grass-fed butter, and full-fat dairy. Testosterone is literally made from cholesterol, too little fat. Your hormone production suffers. One study from the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that men eating 35–40% of their calories from fat had significantly higher testosterone levels than those on low-fat diets. Now carbs, they've been demonized. But in the post-workout window, insulin is your friend. It helps shuttle amino acids and nutrients into muscle, shuts down cortisol, and protects against muscle breakdown. That's why your post-training meal matters so much. The formula: 30–40 g of fast-digesting carbs like rice, fruit, or oats. 25–30 g of high-quality protein. Maybe a touch of fat like nut butter or whole eggs. It's not about stuffing yourself, it's about targeting recovery. And don't forget the micros that drive the macros. Zinc supports testosterone production found in shellfish pumpkin seeds. Magnesium enhances free testosterone from leafy greens, cacao. Vitamin D, more like a hormone than a vitamin, either from sun or supplements. Omega-3s help balance inflammation from flax seeds, walnuts, or fish oil. So back to David. Once he adjusted his meals to signal growth, not just meet calorie goals, his body responded. More energy, better recovery, and yes, actual muscle gain after 60. Here's the lesson. Your fork isn't just a tool, it's a microphone, and your body is always listening. So the next time you eat, ask, am I just feeding myself, or am I telling my body to grow? Now that we've fueled the system, it's time to refine the system itself. In the next section, we'll dive into how your brain and nervous system hold the master key to unlocking real muscle through something called neural precision. Number 6, neural precision: why brain muscle signaling builds more than reps. Not long ago, I watched a man at the gym crank out set after set of bicep curls. His form, sloppy, his face, strained. But what struck me most was what he wasn't doing: connecting. He was moving weights, yes, but he wasn't talking to his muscles. And without that conversation between brain and body, you're just flailing with effort. Let's break this down. Every rep you do, every contraction starts in your brain. Your motor cortex sends signals down your spinal cord, activating motor neurons, which then fire specific muscle fibers. The more focused and precise those signals are, the more high-threshold, growth-prone fibers you recruit. It's not just about lifting weight. It's about how well your brain can talk to your muscles. This is called neuromuscular efficiency. And guess what? As we age, that connection starts to fade, unless we train it deliberately. There's a fascinating study from the Journal of Applied Physiology showing that older adults who focused on mind-muscle connection saw greater hypertrophy and strength gains than those who trained on autopilot. Why? Because when you focus on the movement, not just the motion, you reinforce the very neural pathways responsible for growth. This is especially true for compound lifts: squats, rows, deadlifts, overhead presses. These require your brain to coordinate large groups of muscles simultaneously, demanding precision, not just effort. And here's where it gets even more interesting. In elite athletics, coaches often use motor imagery, literally visualizing a lift before performing it. Because studies show it primes the nervous system, improves firing patterns, and even increases actual strength output. 10 seconds of mental rehearsal can sometimes do more than 10 extra reps. So how do we apply this? Start with intentional reps. Before each set, pause, visualize the movement. Focus on tempo, especially the eccentric phase, the lowering part, where your nervous system has time to learn and adapt, and reduce the junk volume. More isn't better if you're just moving through reps without focus. In fact, less reps, better reps often win the long game, especially when your goal is lean muscle and lasting gains, not just short-term soreness. Let's go back to that man at the gym. After a short conversation, we had him slow down, lighten the load slightly, and feel each curl, initiating from the biceps, not the shoulders. Within 2 weeks, he told me, I finally felt what it means to train a muscle, not just move a weight. The takeaway: your nervous system is the architect. Your muscles are the builders, but if the architect draws lazy blueprints, the house won't stand for long. Now that you've learned how to train smarter from the inside out, brain first, muscle second, it's time to talk about another critical variable: your pace. Because no matter how hard you train, recovery is where growth is sealed. Up next, how to recover intelligently and cycle your intensity for long-term strength without burnout. Number 7. The cortisol curve, hidden hormonal sabotage. Have you ever had one of those days where you crushed your workout, ate clean, even went to bed early, but still felt off? Like your energy was flat, your recovery stalled, and your mood just wouldn't lift. Sometimes the problem isn't what you're doing, it's when you're doing it. And often the hidden culprit is cortisol. Now, cortisol isn't the enemy. It's your body's natural stress hormone, essential for waking up, regulating blood sugar, and even mobilizing energy for exercise. But like all hormones, it follows a rhythm, and when that rhythm gets thrown off, so does everything else. This rhythm is called the cortisol curve. In a healthy body, cortisol spikes naturally in the early morning, helping you wake up, feel alert, and move into your day. Then slowly, it declines through the afternoon and reaches its lowest point at night so your body can produce melatonin and shift into recovery. But here's the issue: modern life is a cortisol wrecking ball. Late night screens, skipping breakfast, training too intensely in the morning, caffeine after lunch. All of these can flatten or shift the curve, keeping cortisol elevated at the wrong times, and elevated evening cortisol. It's like pouring acid on your sleep, recovery, and testosterone. A study in psychoneuroendocrinology showed that men with chronically flattened cortisol rhythms had up to 30% lower testosterone, more belly fat, and reduced sleep quality, even when their workouts and diets were solid. It's a hormonal sabotage happening quietly in the background. Let me share a real story. Mark, a 52-year-old client, trained hard, ate well, took all the right supplements, but he couldn't shake brain fog or muscle soreness. When we tracked his sleep, we found he was watching the news and checking emails late at night, sipping coffee at 3 p.m., and doing HIIT at 7 a.m. His cortisol was high when it should have been low, and low when it should have been high. We fixed 3 things: morning light exposure within 30 minutes of waking to reset his cortisol peak, no caffeine after 2 p.m. to let cortisol taper naturally, swapped late HIIT for afternoon strength training, aligning intensity with when cortisol is already high. 2 weeks later, his sleep deepened, his mood stabilized, his recovery improved. Same workouts, same diet, just better timing. Here's the big takeaway: if testosterone is the builder, cortisol is the bouncer. If cortisol stays too high for too long, it keeps all the anabolic builders, testosterone, growth hormone, even insulin, from doing their job. So if you're feeling stuck despite doing everything right, ask yourself, am I living in sync with my hormonal clock or fighting it? And once you've mastered that internal rhythm, the next step is crucial: knowing how to recover and cycle your intensity so your body doesn't just survive your workouts. It thrives from them. Let's dive into recovery intelligence and how to avoid the burnout trap. Number 8. Recovery not equal to rest, active tools that enhance growth. Most people think recovery means doing nothing, skipping the gym, taking a nap, maybe catching up on TV while letting the muscles rebuild. But here's the truth: recovery isn't the absence of activity, it's the presence of the right kind. Recovery is an active process, and the more intentional you are with it, the more it gives back. Let me take you to a story. A client named James, mid-60s, retired firefighter, tough as nails, came to me frustrated. I'm doing all the lifts. I eat clean. I'm sleeping better now, but I still feel like I'm dragging through the week. We looked closer. James had the training intensity, but his recovery was passive. No movement on off days, no breath work, no targeted circulation work. Just sitting and hoping his body would bounce back. But muscle recovery, and more importantly, adaptation, needs more than rest. It needs signal. That signal can come from Zone 2 cardio, slow, steady movement that increases blood flow, clears waste products from the muscles, and boosts mitochondrial health. Think 30 minutes of brisk walking or light cycling. Mobility and stretching, especially in the evening, to shift your nervous system from fight or flight into rest and digest mode. This isn't just about flexibility. It's about calming the system that lets your muscles grow. Breathwork and parasympathetic activation. 5 minutes of nasal breathing before bed or a mid-afternoon breath reset can reduce cortisol and increase heart rate variability, both powerful markers of recovery. Compression, heat, or contrast therapy, not essential, but for those who like tools, these methods can enhance circulation and reduce delayed onset muscle soreness (DOMS) when used strategically. Now here's what happened with James. Instead of telling him to rest more, we gave him a recovery flow. Monday and Thursday, Zone 2 cardio. Tuesday, 10 minutes of mobility before bed. Saturday, contrast shower in the morning, light yoga in the evening. Every day. 5-minute breathing ritual before sleep. After 3 weeks, James wasn't just less sore, he was stronger, more focused. He even said, "It feels like my muscles finally got the memo to grow." Here's the lesson. Doing more is not always better, but recovering better almost always is. Recovery isn't a break from progress. It is progress. And when you begin seeing recovery as something you do, not something you wait for, your results accelerate. Your body begins to feel younger, more responsive, more alive. And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the big picture. How all these pieces come together. Because knowing what to do is one thing. Living it daily. That's where transformation happens. So let's wrap it all up. Number 9, layering for life, weekly structure that boosts both muscle and hormones. Let me tell you a quick story. A few years ago, a client named Mike, 62, former accountant, now semi-retired, came to me with a calendar full of good intentions. Monday, heavy lifting. Tuesday, long run. Wednesday, yoga. Thursday, intervals. Friday, lift again. Saturday, yard work. Sunday, collapse. He was exhausted, his progress stalled, hormones tanked, and he asked me something that stuck. Am I doing too much, or just doing it in the wrong order? That's when we talked about layering, not stacking more, but scheduling smarter. Because the secret to lasting muscle and healthy hormones isn't just what you do. It's when you do it, and how the pieces support each other. Here's how to think about layering. Your week should ebb and flow like a wave. Intensity rises, then dips for recovery, then rises again, not randomly but rhythmically. For example, Monday, strength training, lower body, compound focus. Tuesday, active recovery, zone 2 walk, mobility. Wednesday, strength training, upper body plus neural focus. Thursday, rest or light movement, yoga, mobility, breathing. Friday, short sprint intervals or metabolic conditioning. Saturday, nature walk, chores, light play. Sunday, full rest plus prep for the week ahead. What's happening here? Strength sessions are spaced to allow recovery and supercompensation. Active recovery days aren't off. They're circulation boosters and stress regulators. Hormones like testosterone and growth hormone get supported, not suppressed, by this rhythm. Your nervous system gets time to reset, so your lifts stay powerful and your sleep stays deep. And for Mike, within 6 weeks of using this simple layered structure, he wasn't just stronger. His morning energy came back, sleep improved, and blood tests showed his testosterone up 18% without a single new supplement. Here's the small but powerful lesson. It's not about grinding harder, it's about syncing better. Just like in music, the best results happen when the rhythm supports the melody. When training, recovery, sleep, and food are layered intentionally, your body starts performing like it was designed to. And that leads us to the final step. You now have the map, the science, the tools, and the sequence. But knowledge alone doesn't change a life. So let's finish with a moment of reflection and a call to action. There's a moment that happens to almost everyone on this journey. Maybe it's after a long workout that leaves you more drained than proud. Or maybe it's standing in front of the mirror, wondering why your effort isn't turning into results anymore. That moment where you quietly ask yourself, is this really working? If you've been there, you're not alone. Many of us were raised on the idea that growth only comes from grind, that you have to suffer more, push harder, ignore the warning signs. But what if that old formula is broken? What if the real path to muscle, strength, and energy isn't paved with willpower, but with wisdom? Because here's what the science and real-world results now show. Your body is not a machine that needs to be punished into change. It's a biological symphony, and every part of it, your hormones, your nervous system, your muscles, even your sleep, responds to signals. Not noise, not chaos, but clear, consistent signals. When you train just before failure, not into exhaustion. When you lift in sync with your circadian rhythm, not against it. When you sleep like it's a secret supplement. When you fuel with food that speaks growth, not just fills a plate. When you recover like a professional and layer your week with rhythm and rest. That's when your body listens. That's when it adapts. That's when change gets easier, not because you're doing less, but because you're doing what works. So here's the final shift I invite you to make. Stop asking, did I push hard enough today? Start asking, did I signal growth today? Let that become your new compass, and watch what happens. Now, if this episode gave you even one aha moment, I'd love for you to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. We dive into new science-backed tools every week to help you rebuild stronger, age better, and train with clarity. Leave a comment. Let me know which signal you're going to focus on first. And give this video a like if you believe we need more wisdom, not just more noise in fitness today. Your journey doesn't need to be harder. It needs to be smarter. And you're already on your way.